everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're super excited to bring you a conversation with a friend of ours, Po Hong Yu. Po and I met many years ago. Now, at this point, man.
Everyone knows many years ago now.
Yeah, at my fitness studio. And Po is amazing. She's up to amazing things in the world. And I wanted to...
Charlie agrees.
Charlie agrees. And we wanted to bring her on for a conversation just about what it is like, honestly, like what it's like and her experience. Share, like bring to you what we would talk about, you know, share her experience with racism in this country and just like sharing your story, right? And like who you are, because I think that this is, you know, I just want to make sure we hear people, like, and people get heard, you know?
And so I just want to say, so Asia saw a Facebook post because she's friends with Po that inspired her to reach out to Po. And it just reminds us, of course, that it's about proximity, right? So maybe you're not friends with Po yet. So you didn't see that Facebook post, or maybe you're not friends with people who are impacted by events in certain ways. And so we just bring people into our living room, literally.
Well, this is our kitchen, but...
We have one room. This is the great room.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're really excited to have you, and thank you.
Yeah. So Po, can you just share just a little bit about yourself? Just, you know, and like what you're up to and
who you are.
Yeah.
Totally. So hello everybody. I'm super excited to be here. So I historically have done all kinds of jobs, but I'm a healer by trade. I was an acupuncturist for 10 years. I literally closed my business when the pandemic started. And I've always been a coach, but now I'm entering into a new field, which I've always done, but just didn't have a business around, which is a spiritual teacher, guide, and always a student, number one. And I consider myself a prosperity revolutionist because I think that everybody has the birthright. We all have a birthright to have prosperity, live an embodied prosperous life. And that doesn't only mean money, but yes, money is part of it. But really being willing to open and receive what the vision and connecting with the life force that allows us to go with the flow, follow what our path is guiding us towards. So that's a little bit about me, but I also wrote a book and like I'm always doing things. I'm always doing the things. So it's all fun and I listen to the energy, like the energetics for me is the priority. And so whatever calls me, I just listen.
Yeah, I love it. And you know, it's funny because I mean, I've always known you as like such just like this energetic person and like not in like super like woo, but you know what I mean? Like you just like feel the energy. Yes, thank you. Attuned. Yes. And I just think it's so I don't know, like I just don't think it's an accident. Like I saw that post, called you and would like message you and called you and it was like, yeah, I'm totally down. I'm totally down. Just to give people some context,
can you talk about the post?
Yeah. Can you share what you wrote? Because like for me, it had an impact on me because I like and about like your name and how you felt and all that kind of stuff. Can you just share that story essentially?
Yeah. So it's called The Power of a Name. The article I wrote, and what inspired it is all the Asian hate crimes that have been happening in the country. And, you know, I've had a whole journey around that since the beginning of the pandemic, which you can talk about later if we want to. But I was noticing as people were posting stuff about the Asian hate crimes, and there was all these dialogues happening on social media. And like people would post the names of the people those 6 women, Asian women that were shot in Atlanta, and the 2 other people, of course. Something stood out because a lot of times, you know, we say their names around the Black Lives Matter movement, which is beautiful. And now I'm seeing Asian names, right? And so it kind of hit me. And also this kind of awareness around posting, I'm writing comments on these posts, and these people can tell from my name that I'm Asian. So there was this heightened awareness around my name. And so I was like, I need to write a post on this because my name has been a huge part of my journey in terms of my own self-love journey and my reclamation journey. Because as a child, and I wrote this in the post, and people are welcome to go on my page to read it, but like I started sensing self-hate around age 5 when I went to preschool. And it was because I was always surrounded by my family and their community who looked like me. And then all of a sudden I go to preschool and nobody looks like me. And I think just on a subconscious level, I felt I knew I was different and I wasn't prepared for that. And so that's when my internalized racism began. And my father tried to put me in Chinese school to learn Mandarin at age 5, which is very common in Chinese culture. And I refused. Like, I would not let it happen. And I always ask my dad, like, "Ba, like, how could you not make a 5-year-old do something?" And he's like, "Trust me, like, you are not like having it." I was that, it was so strong in me already at that age of not wanting to be different, you know? And I wanted to assimilate. Obviously, this is all unconscious, but like looking back and break it all down now and see, like, I was ashamed of being Chinese. And that kind of rippled out to all aspects of my life, starting at that age.
Age 5. Like, isn't that like, that's to me is just like, wow, right? Like, it's so deep. It's so deep that really you're even conscious of it at age 5. And, you know, and like the name, I think the power of a name is so like, because it, and in some ways it says a lot about who you are to other people, you know? And I think about my name and, you know, like it's not, like my sister's name is Erin and my name is Asia, spelled AJA. And I wasn't always conscious of, you know, how it was gonna impact my life. I just thought it was like, oh, I'm cool. And I have a 3-letter name that's also a palindrome. And then I like, you start to realize that like, oh no, like people are really starting to like really have some judgments about you because of your name, you know? And I started to notice that like people were surprised that my sister's name was Erin, you know, because of how she looked, you know, and she's tall and she's darker than me. And they were like, oh, just Erin, just ERIN, like, that's it, you know?
Nothing else.
Nothing else. Yeah. And it's just like, it does have an impact.
And you can talk about your resume.
Oh.
When you move to New York, you're going to be a paralegal. You're perfect on paper.
Well, that's true. But I didn't have it like that. But like when I moved to New York, like I was gonna be a paralegal, and I went to Georgetown, and so like you think like that's a perfect kind of like lead up to getting a job as a paralegal. I studied women and gender studies. I graduated with honors, and I only received like.
And you were fluent in a couple languages.
Well, yeah, in Spanish. I wasn't fluent in Japanese, but I knew,
Okay,
I knew
whatever.
a lot. But
it was an impressive resume.
yeah, I think I only went on like 2 interviews, and I was working with a recruiting agency, and they're like, oh yeah, you should go out, like they're gonna be calling you. We've sent it out to a bunch of places, and I was just like, no, like maybe this isn't what for me, and I worked out fine. But then Molly was like, no, your name is Asia. And I was like, oh, like I was this many days old when I like it actually hit you, like, or hit me, you know? Like, I'm like, I didn't even think about that. Cause like for me, being a Black person, I wasn't thinking like, oh, this is like what it is necessarily. But when you're in proximity to a white person who's like, oh yeah, that's what happened. I was like,
well, and there's studies, right?
But like, yeah. You don't necessarily think that it can apply to you.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And it's so interesting because, you know, part of what I wrote in my post was when I went to high school, I changed my name to Stephanie, right? Not legally. And because I was like made fun of for being Chinese and make my people call me Ho and like just totally, make fun of my name. And then I changed my name to China with a Y for college. Like, so I had so many identity issues surrounding my name and my shame around my culture, and like would do anything to try to escape it. And of course, you can't escape who you are ever.
Doesn't
work. Doesn't work. But when I went to China the first time as an adult in my early 20s, I was surrounded by Asian people for the first time in my life in that way. It completely changed everything. Like I saw there was something that happened energetically where I was able to like really receive my culture and fall in love with my culture in a way that I never had before. And as a result, loving them allowed me to love myself because I am them, I'm a reflection of them. And so when I returned back to the States after that trip, I said my name is Po Hong. At first, I didn't say Po Hong. I had to ease into it. I was just like, but that was huge. I reclaimed my name. That was when my first reclamation of my name happened, and it has been a journey ever since. Like telling people like, oh, your name's Po. Actually, no, it's Po Hong. You can call me Po, but a lot of people didn't know my first name was Po Hong. So I realized, okay, I want to introduce myself as Po Hong. Just people know. And so that was important for me in my process. And, it's just interesting how a name holds so much, and I also talked about in the post how my parents named me it because it means big red. And like the meaning of your name, like it holds so much power, which means big love and big love and big power. That's what big red symbolizes. So, being able to embody the name that we have been given, or a name that you give yourself, because some people like to rename themselves for spiritual reasons too. But there's so much mixed in a name that we don't even think about.
It's really interesting when you said that you went to China and like for the first time, it's like being who you are is normal, right? And that reminds, like when the first time that I went to the continent of Africa, like it's a surreal experience. And to like really like be like, oh, wait a minute, who I am is not an enemy, right? It's not this like object. That's not who I've like always been like shown to be like growing up here. And it's just like normal, right? Like everybody's black.
And you're like, what?
Yeah. Like everybody's black. You're like, it's a really like powerful experience to experience. Yes. And then, it makes me think about how maybe like that's what white people are afraid of when it comes to dealing with like racism and like the influx of like, because eventually minority people are going to become the majority. And Molly's like, yeah, that's what they're afraid of.
Already, I don't know what the stats are, but I mean,
I think it's 2025 is officially when. Isn't that what Valerie tells us? I don't know. This is not a researched interview. This is a living room conversation as a reminder. I think that's what it is though. 2025 is supposed to be in the US. That's when there's going to be fewer white people.
That's like 4 years away.
Wow.
Yeah. That's 4 years away.
And they're getting serious now.
But to have the experience where I guess like who you are, like if you think about it, right? It's like who you are is no longer like the absolute quote unquote norm just by numbers. I guess like, and it has been in this country for like 400 years, but like it's weird. I think that's like a weird kind of maybe unconscious, subconscious fear that's happening. And I just got that, in this conversation, thinking about it. Like when you went to China, and it's like you got to like be.
It's like my whole system, like I can't really explain it, but the closest thing I can relate it to is like my nervous system relaxed in a way.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, what is this feeling? I couldn't identify it. But looking back, I think that's what it was. And I felt softened and open to receiving a new way of being in the world.
Yeah. Now, did you speak Mandarin when you visited as an adult?
Well, see, that's know, that's one of my, I don't really regret anything, but I guess that would be one of my biggest regrets is that I did not study Mandarin. I did not go to Chinese.
5-year-old, yeah.
I do speak a little Mandarin and I got by, and actually they were like, oh, actually you speak pretty well, but my vocabulary is like a kindergartner. So it's fun to practice but it's also embarrassing. But that's I was talking to my friend who because I'm trying to learn Spanish now slowly, and part of learning a language, part of it is like, you're gonna be embarrassed, like you're not gonna say things right, you're not gonna do it right, and your accent's probably not gonna be spot on right away. But yeah, it's something that I like to play with. I love going to Chinatown for that reason. I feel at home, right? I feel like I can practice my language. I can see foods that brings back old memories of home, so it's all connected. It's all connected. Yeah. And I just want to say, with all the stuff that's been coming up with the Asian hate crimes, it's been really interesting for me, walking around. I just wrote a post about this, I think yesterday or the day before, but a couple of days ago, I was walking down the street and I felt this guy looking at me funny in the car, and he turned back around, and I had this automatic thought in my head, is he going to pull out a gun and shoot me in my back? And I know I just took a real big tangent from name to Asian hate crimes, but it's really present for me right now. Yeah. And I just never had that thought before, and I was observing myself have this thought, and it scared the shit out of me. I was like, it really could happen, I'm not paranoid. It's something that's real in our country right now. And so, I just want to bring that into the space, and, so much happening around elders being attacked, which is really, it's enraging, really, really, really enraging. But I also got clarity about, I can't control, we all know this, we can't control other people. All we can do is control ourselves. And so there was something about the reality, accepting the reality of the situation, that brought me a sense of peace.
Yeah.
Even though I know that somebody could do something to me at any point, literally just somebody who walks down the street or drives by, I can just focus on myself and what I can do. So yeah, that brought me a sense of peace, something about just being in the truth of what is. Right. If you're not fighting it.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that, because I think it's something that, as, a woman, a queer woman of color, I can totally relate to. And there was definitely a point in my life where I felt like no matter what, there was no space that I could be in and be safe, right? And I don't remember, I think I just, and that, I get that, right? Because it's actually, that's why these events are traumatic, because you think that, maybe some people might look at it and be like, oh, it only happened to them. But what's happening in our collective psyche, especially if you're somebody who identifies as that group of people targeted, then you're always it becomes so much more real, the possibility of this happening to you. Right? That's the trauma of it. And I think that people don't really get that. Right?
No, because I didn't get it, Asia. I didn't get it. So this is the thing. This has been a super educational experience for me, because when the pandemic first hit and the Asian hate crimes really started to increase because of, Trump saying Kung flu or Chinese virus and things like that, and encouraging, racist people to act out, I literally felt terror in my body for the first time. I've always had the privilege of being able to walk down the street without a fear of somebody attacking me. I never had that fear. And then literally out of nowhere, my body viscerally, I was terrified, and I was scared to go outside because I didn't know what could happen. And then I've gone through all the motions from terror to rage, to grief, to joy, literally the whole gamut, despair, and, to come around now I feel like, okay, that is a good education, because now I can kind of sense how Black and brown people have felt for a long time. Like, I didn't realize I didn't have that, I had that privilege until it was taken away from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so now it's like, okay, I can even see more how white people don't understand, because I didn't understand either, because I didn't have to experience that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm just so curious, right? Because like that is like another level of privilege that like I didn't even think about, right? To have the privilege to go around and not be like afraid for your life for walking out of the door just because of like the color of your skin. It's like I thought about it, but like now I'm like really aware of it, like really present to it. And it's just like, that's a big deal.
Big deal. It's a really big deal, especially like, because I have this contrast of living one way and now another way. And like, in the unforeseeable future, we don't know how long these Asian hate crimes are going to be around. This could be the rest of my life. Who knows? So I also have to be in tune with the possibility of that reality and accept it. Like, for my own well-being, I need to be able to accept it, because the more I try to resist what is, the more suffering I create for myself. So that's where the spiritual work comes in, which is really the foundation of what I bring. It's not about bypassing, because I'm not a spiritual bypasser. Like, I believe that we need to allow ourselves to like feel the grief, feel the rage, move through it in order to get to a place of being able to be present in with truth of what is, in terms of us being one. Like, I really do believe that we are all energetic beings and we are all one. And if we all can tap into that love energy and really empathize, like really truly feel the pain of another, then something magical happens. And not to create suffering for yourself, not so you like, not like a martyr type of way, but more like empathy, like real, true humanity, empathizing, just so you can feel the possibility of what it's like to be someone that experiences different than other people, other groups.
Yeah. So we have a couple of questions. First of all, people are really enjoying this. They're enjoying the conversation and names. But one of the questions probably related to what you're just talking about is, what do we feel is the biggest thing we need to do to end racism in our lifetime? Because that's what we're up to here, by the way. Make no mistake. That is what we're doing in this group, because we feel racism is a waste of time. It really is. It's like,
oh my God, such a waste of time.
Yeah.
I have my personal feeling on this. So racism to me, even though racism is systemic, as we all know, but there's something even deeper than systemic racism, which is disconnection from self and force, energy, whatever you want to call it, higher power. That's how universal law, love, whatever name you want to call it.
Yeah.
I feel like the systemic root of racism is that people are truly disconnected from themselves and love. And in order to do that, you need to be able to feel, like you have to be able to, a lot of people numb and disconnect from their experiences because it's so uncomfortable. They're afraid that they won't ever come out of it. So they just like do all the things to numb. And I've done that. That was the majority of my life. And so I get it. But like that only creates, because you can't selectively numb, right? So if you're numbing in one area, like if you're not allowing yourself to feel your rage or grief, it's going to be harder to actually feel the fullness of your joy and gratitude. That's what I've experienced personally.
Yeah.
And so that's a short answer of that.
It's
question.
a great answer. Short answers are always, it's like, that's a takeaway.
Yeah.
It's easier to put in your pocket and bring with you. So,
and I really appreciate that because, I think it's something like, I think about racism as an access point, right? Like, it's like this, as much as people want to like, I know.
Take a breath, take a breath.
But like, as much as like, I think that we are, you know, like really going for like the like doing things in terms of like, you know, fighting racism and all this kind of stuff, and like, you know, signing the petitions and like wanting to change the laws and all that kind of stuff. But like, in a certain sense, that's solving the problem on the level of the problem. And what this really is an access to go super deep. And like, while the effects of racism have been devastating, I am also grateful because of the opportunity that I think we have in this moment to touch and address what's actually going on for literally the entire planet through this conversation.
Like,
Yeah.
it's a spiritual problem. It's literally a spiritual problem. And so the spiritual problem is the root, and there's all these branches. So that's what from an acupuncture perspective, I'm always looking at the root and branch. And so the branches are systemic racism, global warming, sex trafficking, right? Animal abuse, the food industry, how they treat the animals, like all these different branches come from the same root. And so in order for us to really heal those branches, we need to go deeper.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Ooh,
good.
I just got chills because I'm just like this
The
is like
tree, the
it, right?
tree.
Like, and it's such an opportunity. It's such an opportunity. And I think
Yes.
so often we look at it as like this thing that we want to resist, right? And like, so I was like, Molly and I will have these conversations like in bed
All the time.
all the time. And then I'll wake up and I'll be like, you know, I have a problem
Good morning.
with this idea of like resist, because it keeps showing up, right? Like, how long have we been resisting? And what you look at disappears.
Exactly. So so my foundation, spiritual foundation, is Taoism. My dad used to be a Jesuit priest, but he's turned like a Taoist spiritual teacher, monk slash monk. And so, and acupuncture's foundation is Taoism as well. And so that's the symbol of the yin and yang, if people don't know what Taoism is. And so from this teaching, it's really about going deeper into the yin element. So we're very culturally very yang, which is very masculine, and there's no right or wrong. Like, feminine, masculine are both needed and important, but we have become what they call toxic masculine culture. And so
What does that look like, so people like understand what you mean when you say that?
Yeah, so it means like so focused on productivity and very mind-oriented, overthinking, future tripping, you know, all about planning and structure, you know, which is all important, right? But when you put most of your energy and prioritize the importance of that, then it becomes toxic. So those are just some elements of, you know, masculine stuff. But the feminine energy is about sinking into the soil, into the darkness, into the emotions, into the chaos, into the deepest part of acceptance and love and approval. And so, you know, there's a lot of spiritual teachers talking about the feminine, the divine feminine, and that's really what the yin energy is. And so in order for us to, like, I see, do the healing on a cultural level, on a social level, individuals need to be able to feel safe within themselves to go in deeper into their own feminine energy. And that's not about being sensual. It's not anything gender related or sex related or anything like that. It's about literally the energetics of the feminine, which is surrender. Literal surrender, trusting, and listening to the undercurrents, and letting yourself to really feel the things that you've been repressing, pushing down because of fear that you might go out of control. You know, a lot of times people are afraid to feel because they're afraid of what's there in that closet that's been hidden, for decades or whatever, from trauma and things like that. So I really believe the micro and macro are reflections of each other. And so the more healing we do within ourselves, that's going to show on the macro level as well.
Yes.
That's
yes. It's so like, and that's just like, I think, and we're up to doing things differently in this group, and that's one of those things that I try to like really hit on and we try to talk about, is because like how we've been being has not been
Doesn't work.
working.
It has not been, and that's just it, right? Like it has not been working. Not like, people talk about getting back to normal all the time, and we're just like, going back to that, like just 1 year ago. That's what you are, or you want 50 years ago, or you want like, no, this hasn't actually been working. And if it's been working for you and you don't get to see that it's not working, that's fine, and have more conversations.
Well, that's like a really interesting thing, right? Because like I think a lot of times what people will say to that is, oh, it's working for some people. And I would submit to you that it might be working, but isn't working as well as it could be. Right? Like we think it's working, but really we're just like, for all we know, we're just settling for this like really mediocre,
nonsensical.
Yeah, status quo of like boringness. I don't know,
Yeah, it just feels like we're missing out on a whole lot by deciding that this is the standard.
Yeah, and it's not supposed to be just for some people. We're looking at humanity.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking about like a whole shift.
Yeah.
Not just for some people. And so like if we want things to change on a global scale, we need to look deeper. We need to like be willing to look at ourselves in the mirror and look at shit that we haven't wanted to look at.
Yeah.
Yep.
As a whole country too.
Yeah.
So we've got a number of things here. I keep looking down because this is where the conversation is happening. Just so you know. Okay, so Erin Greenwell, also of New Body Boot Camp in Brooklyn, says, I just joined this live. Does anyone know of best resources for attending bystander workshops? I definitely don't. Do you know of any? No. Okay. So no, but thank you for but that's a great thing. If anyone watching knows of resources.
Yeah, we can do an action on that.
And this is a question that I'm super grateful that Sandra asked, because it strikes me as a question that some people may not want to ask, or maybe, but I think a lot of people have it. And it's, may I ask an Asian individual's real name? And if so, what's the most respectful way to do so?
So I can't speak for all Asian people, but if I were, if I had an American name and had also an Asian name, I'm guessing that I wouldn't want somebody to ask me that question. If I wanted somebody to know, I probably would tell them, but that's just me. So I don't know. It's all individual. Like people are so different in how they react to that. And also I think it's how you ask too, if you're coming from a place of pure curiosity, but you also don't want to assume that they have an Asian name. Like actually there are Asian people who were given an American name by their parents. And so they might not actually have an Asian name. So it can be an assumption that you have that they have an Asian name, which might not even be true.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. As I know Asian people who don't have Asian names, so that would.
Or like, and what's interesting though? I want to, and I appreciate that, but I want to like put a little stick in this context that we're creating in terms of like, what is an American name?
Yeah.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
It's because American Indians were the true Americans.
Yeah. So like, what are we really saying when we say that? I mean,
straight
right?
white people names.
Yeah.
I mean, like Molly, maybe.
Like Molly. Yeah.
I believe that's an Irish name.
But like, that's an interesting like thing to think about. Like, really, what is an American name?
That's a really good question, because it's funny because, I wrote my post, and, I told people, like, I named myself Stephanie, and my friend Stephanie actually came on and commented, and she's like, actually, and she schooled me, and she was not like at all like defensive about me saying that, but she was like, it's actually a Greek name, so like when I was a teenager, I assumed it was an American name, but really it's a Greek name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, and I just think about too, if you had introduced yourself as Stephanie, at that point in your life, you've made a conscious choice to present as Stephanie. And if someone's saying like, "Oh, what's your real name?" You're like, if I wanted you to know that. Yeah.
So when you say that, Molly, it makes me think of somebody who might be like trans, right?
That's
And
exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like how they're presenting in a certain way. Are you going to really say like, what is your real gender? Like,
what did it used to be? Yeah.
What it used to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think it comes to this idea, right? In our group, we talk about not making people wrong. And also I think in terms of when you meet someone, right? It's like not making them wrong for who they are, how they show up, or not thinking they should be some kind of different way, and really just like taking people for who they are. So that is great. Sandra says, you're right in asking my language. Asking could have been better. Sandra, we so appreciate this question. Okay.
Yeah,
like, make no mistake. This is the question that so many people went, I'm so glad they asked.
Yeah. It's like waiting for the answer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like the question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That's what needs to happen is like people ask these questions so they can learn. Like, I think that's
exactly.
really, yeah.
Exactly. And yeah. So great. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I understand what you mean. Okay, hang on. I'm missing a bunch of people are here for it. Asher said her this yin and yang topic is hitting my cis white husband real hard, and I'm here for it. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Stephen. Amazing.
And the beautiful part of the yin yang flow is that both the masculine and the feminine are working as one. Right. They flow together. So there's no separation, there's no disconnection, there's not one saying one is better than other. There's no hierarchy. It's just that they're not working as one now. That's the whole point. And so, yeah.
And can you clarify, so if there are two women in a relationship, is there still yin and yang?
Absolutely. It has nothing to do with the sex, the gender, the type of relationship you're in. It's all energetic. So, and if I'm with a man, I'm queer as well, but if I'm with a man, like he embodies feminine energy as well. So my masculine feminine energy is also mixing and dancing with his feminine masculine energy. It's all a dance. And so, but it's harder to find that dance with somebody else if we're having a hard time finding that yin yang dance within ourselves.
Yeah. And you know what I really love about that is because it's the same thing that we're all talking about, right? Like, it's like this idea that there's not like one way that you are, right? Like,
I know we keep just talking about this.
I know, like we're not just all feminine, we're not all just masculine, like, and there's no one way, like there's both inside of us, and like that's like what racism does, right? It makes you try to be one way.
Have an American name.
Have an American name. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like, that doesn't work.
I've been paying attention. I seemed a little surprised. Exactly. How'd she know?
No, but like, that's we work together all the time.
Molly's antennas are up. She's.
I got it. It's amazing. All right, so we have a question. What do you say to politicians who won't acknowledge there's a problem with violence against the AAPI community?
It's hard for me to answer that. Like, I don't really know what to say to that, actually. I mean, the part that the emotional part is like, fuck you. Right? Like that part, like
that, like,
like, what? Like, are you blind? Like, hello, like, you gotta like wake up here. I don't think I have a politically correct answer here. Like, I think I would just like, if I could like talk to them on the side, like I would talk to them about their own inner healing. Like, that's where I would go. Cause I really feel like that it has to happen in order for people to awaken to other possibilities of perspectives. Right. And so I would take them deeper.
Yes.
Only, oh my gosh.
Right? Essentially, you would have a conversation.
Yes, I would have a conversation.
You would have a
Ask
conversation.
them questions.
And that's something that like we're really like about is like getting people and giving people the tools to have these conversations, and why like not just like proximity, but engaging with people who like politicians, like I'm especially talking to white people right now, right? Because like, yeah, listening, right? Because like you just have a certain perspective, like a certain proximity that, and listening, like other white people are going to listen differently to a Molly than they are to Poe or an Asia, you know? And just like men, right? Like white men are going to listen differently to another white man than they would to a Molly, an Asia, or Poe. And so like that's why like I think like your answer is perfect, right? You would pull them aside and have a conversation, and that's exactly what we want. I think like that's the key, like, and not talking about like you're wrong for not seeing this. You're wrong. Like, how can you not see this? Instead of talking about, instead you're like, what's really going on with you that allows you to keep these blinders up and not be truly connected with the people that you're serving?
Yeah, and I would add to that, I would share my story, because I really feel like storytelling is so powerful. Like, you know, my post, that Power of a Name post, got over like 300 likes. I was surprised. I didn't, you know, expect that. But I think it's because people were like, oh, I didn't know that, you know, like I never saw that perspective before, because that wasn't my life. And so I think storytelling is really a powerful form of letting people connect with their empathy and their compassion. And also I want to share, like, I heard about this, I saw this guy on Joe Rogan's show. I don't know if you know Joe Rogan, but he has this like podcast on YouTube, and this man who is a jazz artist, Black man, became friends with all these KKK. You heard about this, Molly?
His last name's Davis. He's
Daryl Davis.
Daryl Davis, yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly related to Asia, but no one we know.
Like all these KKK folks left the KKK and like started to see things differently because of this one man.
Yeah. And that's just it, right? Like it's proximity. It's proximity. It's
and
proximity and engagement. And that, yes, exactly. Can't just start sitting next to people on the bus. Proximity and engagement. But part of the reason this group exists is because I realized that I had access to a different level of conversation after the death of George Floyd than most of my white friends. I had access to a different level. I had access to different Facebook posts. I had access to my father-in-law. You know, we were actually with him around that time. And so we had some really powerful, interesting conversations and storytelling, and him sharing what had gone on in his own life. And, you know, and it's so powerful. And I was actually talking with someone, I don't know what day, but like sometime between March and this March, like this year. Yeah. Sometime this week, year, month or something. But they studied the neuroscience of bias. And it was so fascinating because it was like, yeah, no, really, like we can see bias in the basal ganglia in the brain. And also this can be mitigated and addressed by proximity and engagement. It was a fascinating conversation. It happened sometime like year. Yeah, it's amazing. So I'm gonna like connect.
Find that,
yeah,
we need to.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I know. I love neuroscience. So it's amazing. But yeah. So it's actually like not that because a neuroscientist says it makes it real, but it's actually like this is how it works. It's not just like, oh yeah, I think it makes it better if you have proximity. It's like, no, it actually really impacts your brain to have proximity to people. And of course it does, right? And it actually really impacts your energy to have this proximity. It just doesn't, I don't know.
That's fascinating.
I know.
Else to it, which is like contemplation, because I was born in, like, I was raised with mostly Black friends, like since I was little, and still most of my best friends now are Black. And I have to admit, like up until a few years ago, I still wasn't fully able to embrace the amount of pain Black and brown people were going through, even though they were my best friends, even though I was raised around Black and brown people, because I was afraid to feel that level of suffering. I didn't want to see it. I wanted to numb myself from feeling that. And so, yes, we can be in proximity, we can engage, but if we're unwilling to be able to empathize and really feel what's actually happening for another group or people, then it doesn't fully get in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's the energetics of it.
Yeah, energetic. Because I literally experienced that myself, and I had to really look at my own racism in me, and even though these are my people, I'm like, what the fuck? I had to really look at myself and look in the mirror and be really honest. And I had to have a conversation with myself, and that was really awesome. It was really eye-opening. And I think that's what it takes. We need to be willing to be humble in this experience.
Yes. Okay, can you share a little bit more about that conversation with yourself, right? Because I think that's what people are like really afraid of, and they feel like they don't know how to do it. So, like, what did you do? Like, and like, what did you think you were afraid of, and what did you find?
I was afraid first of because I'm very empathic, very sensitive, always has been. I think first I was afraid to feel the level of suffering in the world because I didn't think I would be able to hold all of that sensation in my body. Like, it was just too much in my mind. I think, like, I don't want to feel that. This is all subconscious, obviously, but like, so that was one. Like, I just don't want to feel the suffering. I just want to be like, kind of put my, blinders on. And then I think I was afraid to see like how I have my own biases, and my own egoic stories and conditionings around race, what that could take away from me, potentially. I think the way I did it was just, I do a lot of work at looking at the ego, watching my thoughts, I'm a conscious practitioner. And what that means is like, I'm always observing what I'm thinking, always connecting to what the sensations are in my body and what emotions are living there, and letting myself be with them, not trying to fix them. I think that's the toxic masculine way of self-development world. But truly the way is just to be able to sit in the discomfort of what you see and feel, and not do anything, and just be with it and allow then things will start to move. You start to see more. And, obviously a lot of compassion needs to come here, because this cannot happen with guilt, shame. You can't beat up on yourself and be like, oh my God, I did that, I'm fucked up, and all this judgment. No, it has to be met with a lot of self-compassion and forgiveness. And I think forgiveness, and you talked about like, how can we heal the root? I really feel like forgiveness is a big piece of that, and healing people, like forgiving people that we might think are not forgivable. Very radical. I know that might activate some people, but like,
Stop it.
I know from my own personal experience, I've done some deep forgiveness work on my perpetrators. Like, I've been raped multiple times in my teens, and the level of freedom and liberation and connection to my own personal self-love and power has been expanded from me being able to forgive them. Because it's not for them. It's not saying it's okay what you're doing. Right. Forgiveness is always for yourself. Then that forgiveness overflows, and then you're able to actually serve humanity in a way from a place of fullness instead of emptiness.
Oh, so good. And you just reminded me that I think that's like what I did because I, especially, I think maybe this has happened for people in college, but I was angry. I was like, because like you start to like see, you're like, holy shit, like this is so fucked up. Like it's like the veil of like childhood, even though like you knew some stuff, but you like I really started to see it, and I'm like, this shit, right? And
White
then
people.
yeah, like white people, like I couldn't have talked to Molly, like I wouldn't have been talking to her. Like, no, 10
I would have been like, where are you really from?
uh-huh.
How do you get your hair to look like that? So different.
Was not having it. Was not having
Would have
it.
gotten really well. Like, I grew up in New Hampshire. Totally like, let's even. Yeah.
And I had to forgive myself for like being angry, for not like acknowledging all of this, for what was going on and like my feelings of it, and for like even for like growing up the way that I did, and like not feeling like that I was enough because I was a black person who didn't like necessarily fit in with black people, and I was black so I didn't fit in with white people, and like that really, like that I think really is what happened, and I just let it go. And now I'm able to do this from a place of like, I think that's
Love.
a love. Yeah. Like that's why like this isn't exhausting to me.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm not carrying this around like a whole, like literally like a chain of all that's gone on and that I could carry around. And then on top of that, try to do this. Like that doesn't work. And you really hit it on the head, right? Like it's not exhausting for me. And I think that's a lot of times we hear like, oh, it's so exhausting for people of color to like deal with this. And like, yeah, because we haven't forgiven ourselves for a lot of this stuff, a lot of the way that we've been feeling and dealing with, in order to get to a place of like really nothingness around this, right? Not meaning none of this matters. It does, like it matters. It's important. And in order to create where we want to go, like I can't be carrying that ball and chain the whole time and creating at the same time.
It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. It doesn't.
We talk about that all the time.
And not only is it not
That's
sustainable,
true,
but
though.
it actually creates more ripples of ripples the other way. So we're trying to create ripples from love, not ripples from fear, because the energetics are completely different.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of people out there who are trying to make change from ripples of fear and hatred, and that isn't the answer either, you know? So it really requires a deep, excavation and self-love work that you're talking about, Asia. That's wonderful. I love that you did that.
I didn't even realize I did that until talking to you. So thank you.
I
I was like, that is it. I was like, how did you get to this place? But you're right.
I think you
like,
a certificate.
Thank
on
you.
The refrigerator
Please
for you.
make me my certificate. You know, it's just
Certificate of completion, forgiveness.
But I think about, you know, all the like the anger that's out there, and it's justifiable, right? And it really comes from the like, what is anger really rooted in? Fear, you know? And so it's just not sustainable. If we're looking to create what we want to create, if we want to create more of what we already had, then like by all means, we can stay in like from this place of anger. But that's just like there's more opening up for me here. So thank you.
It's interesting because you all know that we love the work of Valerie Kaur and Revolutionary Love. She just this is a totally amazing book, and part of her story is forgiving the people who I believe actually murdered her uncle, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't
Someone,
her uncle.
someone in
It was in her community.
yeah, but so someone who like literally forgiving people who inflicted violence on the Sikh population after 9/11, and actually going to the jail and actually having a conversation with the person. And it's just, and she also talks a lot about grieving with and not for. So don't grieve for the Asian community over there. Grieve with. And it's a simple distinction. And it's a distinction that we talk a lot about in our Exponential Human project, but this idea of doing with and not for. whether you're trying to make something better or be with people through their pain, it's to your point, like, you don't just walk away from it and go, oh, them over there, that's really sad for them. That must be hard. It's like, that's not empathy. You know, that's
sympathy.
yeah. And that increases that disconnect. Okay.
I love that story.
Let's see here.
Take the radical, it requires courageousness in order to do this level of forgiveness work. That's what is being asked of people right now in the world, is to really connect with that bravery within them and to go into these places that have been hidden for a long time. That's what
it's so required though in our program called Exponential Human Project. I probably shouldn't give away everything that's in there. It's an amazing program, I will say. But one of the participants in it said, like, yeah, I guess in hindsight, if I'd known that I was going to join this program and I'd have to clean out the basement like this, meaning the basement of the emotions and thoughts and feelings, I don't know if I would have signed up for that, but I'm so excited about what's on the other side of it, that it has me here and doing this work and doing this looking and doing this digging and this excavation, right?
Yes.
So, okay, so there's a lot. People love this conversation, which is great. And it means that okay. Cindy says, this is an amazing conversation. How do we get more of the community engaging? You invite them, you tell them to invite. This is a group you can share, just so you all know, you can share this conversation on your wall. You could say, watch this really amazing thing
or
around
just bring a
27
friend.
minutes.
Bring a friend and be like, hey, we're gonna watch this together. Join me.
I wonder if you could do like watch parties.
I think you can.
For these kind of things. Listen, we don't know, but there's a lot of ways. Call your friends. Okay, so someone says, I teach literature. This is a powerful affirmation for reading a variety of stories from a variety of cultures and individuals. Yes, yes, and yes. And then Jill says, neuroscience nerding out over here. To connect with what Po Hong said, when we listen to or read stories, our brains experience them as if we are experiencing those same events. We are feeling into someone else's life and experiencing walking in their shoes. Exactly. The brain doesn't know. The brain doesn't actually know if it really happened or it's imagined. And I was thinking about, I'm very interested in this. If there's neuroscience nerds in here, I'd like you to respond, please. But how you said you felt your nervous system relax. And what I was thinking about is that fight, flight, or freeze. And I wonder if on some level that goes away when you're surrounded by people who look like you. I don't know.
I don't know either, but that's just from looking back, and yeah, I'm guessing that's what happened.
I think that it's like an amygdala thing. Yeah, it's very interesting. And then I think about, like, how do you mitigate that? How do you get yourself out of the fight or flight when you're surrounded with people who don't look like you? You know what I mean? Proximity.
Well, I think okay. Proximity, and
Sue says you can do watch parties.
Yeah.
Big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, I think there's definitely a way, right? I think it's like bringing down the wall of this illusion that we are separate, that there is such thing as a them over there, right? And like just knowing that viscerally. And
I think it's a combination of like really paying attention to like your beliefs and ego stuff and doing embodiment work. It's really into embodiment work and really connect, because people are terrified to feel the sensations in their body, y'all. Like, it's really like, it seems like crazy, but it's not. I was one of those people. Like, sensations to people are really uncomfortable. Like, a lot of times, like, if your heart starts racing, people will think like, oh, I'm having an anxiety attack, but it's also because the mind is making it something it's not, making a meaning out of that sensation, and it's sitting and being with the sensation. So it's a combination of like, you know, the mind work, emotional work, and the embodiment.
Yeah. This has been, like, I totally agree.
I know.
Thank you so much.
I was like, I just looked at the time. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
It just.
It feels like
hanging out in the living room.
Yeah. This conversation is particularly, I think, sourceful, right? And like really like generative. Like, I feel like generated and invigorated by it. It feels like, you know, like Super Soul Sunday, you know, watch that show and I'm like, yes, right? That's what it feels like.
Sort of like Oprah. These are our oak trees.
Okay. Yeah,
it's fine.
It's all good.
Fiddly fig, aka Figgles. Giant oak trees. Yeah, this one's name is Figgles. We have an artificial one named Figment. And we put Figgles next to Figment, and Figgles move your head. Look at Figgles. After spending time next to Figment, who's an artificial fiddle leaf fig. I mean,
Really?
yes.
Wow.
That's with orchids. She'll put fake ones in with the real ones, and then the real ones like grow to be like the fake ones.
We all need friends and community.
I know. I figured to connect in some way, and y'all would work that out. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. So
I know.
I feel like we could run with that for a while, but it is 2:04, and I'm supposed to be on something at 2:00, and it is so nice to have you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much
thanks,
for
girl.
being here, and I think that
So if people want to follow you, you're on IG, right? Is that the best thing?
it's been posted in the comments. Someone already found you, so.
IG and Facebook. And I'm gonna join the group too, so you all can, I don't know, I'll just join and be part of the conversation.
Yeah, of course you'll join the group. Yeah.
Please do.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
have a really special day in the group called Listening Tuesday, and it is addressing exactly what you're talking about, where the BIPOC community openly shares whatever's on their heart or mind, and everybody responds with just a random color, but we just pick a heart, but a random color heart. And what we really practice on that day is that listening, is that being with whatever's coming up for you. Mm-hmm. So you share whatever you want to share, and then people are invited to just be with it. Mm-hmm. Just be with it. Don't read it thinking about what you're going to type in next, like crazy cat gift style. Like, no, like just be with it. And it's, I think probably, it is why this group is as powerful as it is, because now I'm watching me doing this on the screen. It's a lot. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
So
thank you so much, Poe. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. This was such a great conversation. I hope it creates many ripples of love and forgiveness.
Yeah, well, it's 73 comments and a bunch of people joining us live. So, and most people catch the replays of it. So,
Yeah.
So awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye-bye.